Hey guys, David here and welcome to this video. So today I'm gonna talk about how I switch my main computer from Windows over to Linux completely. I'm not dual booting, nothing, I'm switched completely to Linux. And today I'm gonna tell you my experience with it and why I think it's the best thing I've ever done. So as far as my computer goes, I'm quite a power user. I do a lot of coding, I do modeling, I do 3D rendering, I do video editing, photo editing. So I use a whole bunch of different software. I use quite a bit of the Adobe suite and quite a few other software that just doesn't exist on Linux. So switching to Linux always has kind of been a dream of mine because I'm just fed up with Windows, with all their stupid updates that break everything and it installing games for you that you already have uninstalled 3 times, but yay, it's free, so I just installed it for you. You're welcome. And Edge browser and all the bullshit on Windows. I just was sick of it. So switching to Linux always has been something like, yeah, I want to do that sometime. And then recently, when Wendell went on LTT and did a video about gaming on Linux, I just kind of thought, well, this seems to work a lot better than the last couple times I tried it. Because I have attempted to switch to Linux more than once. In the past, I just did it with dual booting and then I just never really get the hang of it and didn't use it because I could just switch over to Windows again. So this time was going to be different. My Windows install was kind of bricked already, so I would have to reinstall it at some point anyways. So instead of dual booting and installing Linux on a separate drive, I wiped my main drive and installed Ubuntu 18.04 on it and started fresh. Now, in the beginning, it was difficult. I found most of the programs that I use in just for relaxing, like Google Chrome basically is under, it's called Chromium, but it's basically Chrome, and you can do all the browser things in there. And Spotify and Skype and some of my slicers for 3D printing and all that stuff is all on there, which is super great. And then I wanted to do some more. I wanted to get into some video editing. Now I knew that Adobe Suite is not available on Linux. So I installed a Windows virtual machine on it with KVM, which is a built-in hypervisor in Linux, which is really, really handy as it's very low level and it worked great, but to really get the most out of Windows, you need a graphics card. And that's why I wanted to pass through a graphics card, which you can do inside of KVM. You've seen it before on LTT and all the other tech channels where they pass through graphics cards to virtual machines and then have a whole bunch of stuff, and it's not as easy as it looks. First of all, of course, you need 2 graphics cards. The first one I tried it with is just a super old graphics card, but it didn't really work because I couldn't get the appropriate drivers for it, but that's because the graphics card was just too old. So I kind of put that project on hold and didn't use the virtual machine as much. I basically haven't started it in the past 2 or 3 weeks. As with other graphics cards, even Photoshop runs really slow in there and it's not very usable. That's put me in kind of a situation now where I haven't been getting as much work done as I wanted to in the last couple of weeks. You've seen I haven't even put up a video last week. And that's although I said, yay, I'm back and I'm gonna make a whole bunch of more videos. And that's not because I can't edit video on Linux. I managed to get DaVinci Resolve installed on Ubuntu. Officially, it's not supported for Debian-based Linux systems, but there is a script that you can use to get it working. The only problem is that it is still very beta. For example, the main issue with it is that H.264 does not work. That means that the footage I get from this camera, which is in H.264, I first have to transcode to, for example, ProRes, and then from there I can import it into DaVinci Resolve, do my editing, and of course I'm not a DaVinci Resolve user, so it's kind of hard to get started in there. It's similar to Premiere, but it's different in some ways. And then after I'm done there, I can't export it to H.264. So I have to export it to some other format, and then I have to transcode that again to H.264. And while with some included tools in Linux or FFmpeg, which is a pack that you can install, and some scripts that I wrote, it's really easy to transcode all that footage. It works basically like Adobe Media Encoder, and it's really powerful. The only issue is that every time you transcode footage like that, you lose a bit of quality. And since I didn't know the exact settings, I didn't have it as good as I could have had it. And the last two videos, you saw them on YouTube, and they just weren't quite as good from the, like, quality-wise as I wanted them. It looked like I shot them on a potato, and that's really not what I wanted. So I have kind of stopped editing in there and wanted to go back to Premiere, but I'm probably gonna just pick up like a used 1080 and put that in the system for GPU pass-through. But besides that, the only other thing that I really just couldn't find an alternative on Linux is Fusion 360. I use that software all the time for all my 3D printing needs, modeling needs, and so since it also really needs a graphics card, I just have been using it on my MacBook, which is not the best place to use it, but it works. But what does run on Linux is just almost everything you could need otherwise. On Steam, half the Steam library is supported natively in Linux, and with what I just announced this week, I haven't tried it yet, Steam for Linux, which is basically automatically using Wine to make most Steam games run on Linux, is really awesome, meaning you have even more possibilities if you're a gamer. And for Microsoft Office, which is another suite I use quite often, of course you can't install it, but their online version is almost as good as the standalone desktop version. So I just use Office Online in the browser. Since I have a 360 subscription, that doesn't matter anyways. And for like smaller programs, oftentimes the same program isn't available on Linux, but there are so many great alternatives. And if you Google, you can find so much about it. The community on Linux is super duper active. And if you go, for example, on the Level 1 text forum, which I've been using quite a lot to get various things working, there I always got like 5 or 6 responses within like an hour or two to my topics, and they're all super helpful and nice. So it was very easy to find out different things that I just couldn't get working on my own. And there is a lot more tinkering on Linux. But on the plus side, you can get stuff working, and it kind of works how you think it will work. And once you get it working, you don't have to worry about it just breaking again because, yay, Windows updates and something changed and something else changed. None of that. You never have to just restart the computer randomly for updates or any of that stupid stuff. So in conclusion, if you're a tinkerer and you like to play around with your computer and make different stuff work, and you're just fed up with Windows completely, then switching to Linux might be a lot more feasible than you think. And with some time on your hand and some patience learning all the different things, you really can get almost everything working on Linux. And for the few things that you can't get working, you can just use a VM. It's super easy to install, and unless you're doing like intensive 3D stuff, you can do it without a graphics card. But if you're the kind of person that already finds it difficult to manage stuff on Windows and you're not really that advanced into PC, then maybe switching to Linux isn't quite the right thing for you. Because while there is like scripts you can copy and lines you can copy for basically everything, you do spend quite a bit of time in the command line and installing different things and troubleshooting and just doing stuff manually, editing config files. That sounds really, really intense right now. It's not that bad if you take it slow, but it is some work and some tinkering that you have to do to get everything working quite right. So if you have any questions about my install and what I'm doing, what software I'm using, you can leave them down in the comments and I will answer them. And other than that, you can subscribe to my channel to see all my future videos. And so thanks for watching, and until next time.